Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, Jackson Kellogg, and today we'll be getting into NFL Power Rankings Week 10. I feel a lot better than I did last week. Definitely sound a lot better. So, normal videos this week with Power Rankings. Game picks will come out either Saturday night or Sunday morning, and Boston Tea Party Podcast will come out sometime between this going live and before the Patriots game happens on Monday. So getting right into this week's Power Rankings, at the number 32 spot, we have the New York Jets. Being a Patriots fan, it was very scary to watch the Patriots almost lose to the Jets primetime Monday Night Football, but they pulled through, putting the Jets at 0-9 on the season. Honestly, it's a good look for the Jets, as they're still pushing for that number one overall pick. I think it'll get really interesting here soon to see what happens, because if they pick Trevor Lawrence at number one, that means they're most likely going to end up trading Sam Darnold. So it'll be very interesting to see the different spots that Sam Darnold might end up. I think my top pick right now for him to go to is the Colts. He seems like the most obvious option right now, but I'm sure there are a couple others in there that could quite possibly happen. 31, I have the Jaguars, the team most likely to draft a quarterback this year in the draft. So the Jaguars, as they went toe-to-toe with the Texans with Jake Luton as their starting quarterback, with Gardner Minshew dealing with an injury. Luton didn't play terrible, but with the game on the line, he scored a touchdown to put the Jaguars down by 2 points. All he had to do was convert the 2-point conversion, and they would have tied it up, but he threw an incomplete ball to his right side. So Jaguars lost a close one. Definitely a brighter spot for the Jaguars, as they were competitive, at least in a game this season. The Jaguars receiving core helped carry them through that game, I feel like. But nonetheless, a decent performance for the Jaguars, just didn't end up with a win. At 30, the Washington football team, in a game where they went toe-to-toe with one of the worst teams in the league, in the New York Giants, they lost. Pretty badly, too, all things considered. Kyle Allen got injured in the game with an ankle injury, so Alex Smith, the man who should not have come back to the league, but did anyway, went in and came in for Kyle Allen and threw 3 interceptions, 2 being on the final 2 drives for Washington. So yeah, that's pretty much sums up Washington's season. I had a little bit higher hopes for them this year, because I thought the defense would be able to help them out a bit. I thought the defense looked pretty decent on paper, but they have not been able to pull them or carry them through games, as the offense just hasn't been able to get a kickstart going, other than Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson carrying them the way. At 29, the team who beat Washington, the New York Giants. The Giants are slowly putting together some decent outings. Daniel Jones is looking a little bit better. The receiving core is definitely playing better, which means the offense is playing better. The running back committee with Wayne Gallman and Deion Lewis isn't doing too terrible, so the offense is definitely moving more positively, and so is the defense, as the defense, especially the secondary, has been making some nice plays. I think Logan Ryan definitely helped him out with that addition in the offseason. The Giants are still competing for that NFC East title, and at this point the Eagles are in the lead of it right now, but I just have a feeling it's not going to be the Eagles to hold it at the end of the year. So we'll see who pulls through. At 28, it's bad. We're already at 28 on the list, and I have our third NFC East team. That's just brutal to me. But anyways, Cowboys. Garrett Gilbert played great against the Steelers. The Cowboys were, for once, competitive this year, and they almost knocked off the Steelers, if not for some ref ball. But Cowboys came close. It's definitely something to build off of for them this year, to try and go take the division away from the Eagles. They shouldn't look at the loss too like bad on themselves because they were competitive for the first time this season. 27, the Cincinnati Bengals. I had to throw in like the little dash mark inside the logo because it was black on black. But Bengals had a bye week this week. Joe Burrow in competition with Herbert right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think right now the edge goes to Herbert. But if the Bengals can put some wins together through the second half of the season, with Burrow leading them the way, I think it could switch over. But the Bengals aren't playing too terribly. Joe Burrow's definitely leading the offense better than people expected this early. He's playing great. I think he's thrown the most passes so far in the league. I think he has the most pass attempts by any quarterback. So they definitely trust him with the ball. It's just a matter of now putting the defense together because the offensive side has all the talent they need except on the offensive line. The offensive line obviously needs some work, but they've played better as of recently. The defense is going to need some retooling in the offseason as they just keep allowing 30-point after 30-point game. It's brutal. At 26, the Detroit Lions. Yeah, so much for them being a good team. Yeah, the Vikings just picked them apart. And I'm sorry. The Vikings didn't pick them apart. Dalvin Cook gave him like a 5-course meal because that was just a brutal showing for the Lions defense against Dalvin Cook. They could not stop him. Back-to-back weeks, Dalvin Cook has like over 400 total yards and like a bajillion touchdowns. So Dalvin Cook is just as much as anybody up there in the MVP conversation. I think Russell Wilson is slowly starting to lose it, but there's not like a big, like, oh, who does it go to? I definitely shouldn't be unanimous right now. But anyways, the Lions did not look like a good showing. Matthew Stafford got hurt during the game, which means Chase Daniel came in, and the Lions are it's just not good for them this year. Not good at all. Matt Patricia's going to lose his job. 25, we have the Denver Broncos. They did not move at all after a very close loss to the Atlanta Falcons. They almost choked their way out of it again. Almost did. But they were able to hold on. Drew Lock could not carry them back to victory. See, it was very weird for the Broncos because I was going against Drew Lock in fantasy football this week, right? And for most of the game, he had like 7 points. So I was like, all right, good. Quarterback isn't doing too well this week. And then it was just touchdown after touchdown. He ended up with over 40 points. In fantasy, it was brutal. Ended up losing again this week. I'm 3-6 on the season. Not too good. But Broncos, they definitely have a bright spot going forward. I think a lot of the questions about Drew Lock are being answered. He does seem like he can be a franchise quarterback. I don't think the Broncos have to worry about quarterback going forward in the future, and it does help that a lot of the weapons he has are on the younger side, where you've got Jerry Jeudy, who's breaking out, Noah Fant, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton's injured, and then you've got your running back duo in Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. So good offense to look forward to in the next couple years. At 24, we have the leaders of the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't play a game this week, but they do still hold the crown as leaders of the division. And they're like 3-4-1. So, yeah. Not too much to say about the Eagles. They're getting a bunch of players back from injury, so hopefully that can help them out a bit. But I don't think the Eagles have the talent depth-wise to make it through season, because we're seeing it now in the league where the teams that are injury-riddled, the ones that are still being successful, like if you look at the 49ers, they're not playing too bad considering all the injuries they had, which is pretty equivalent on the same level as the Eagles. I had someone argue about me with it the other day where it was like, well, the 49ers haven't dealt with as many injuries as the Eagles. Yes, they have. And they've played more competitive opponents. So, the Eagles, if they do end up winning the division, making the playoffs, they're going to get blown out in the first round. Mark my words by it, because this team does not know how to play for the moment. They always barely make it through and then can't show for it when it matters. At 23, the Carolina Panthers, very close loss to the Chiefs. Joey Sly definitely has a leg. He's going to break that record at some point because, I think it's back-to-back weeks now. So whether it is or it isn't, he was just short on like a 65-yard field goal a couple weeks ago. Just short. And I mean like by a couple inches. Almost domed off of the crossbar. And then this week they're playing the Chiefs, and they drive down, and you're going, well, they're gonna have to go for a Hail Mary here, right? They're not in field goal range. Nope. They put out Joey Sly to attempt a 67-yard field goal, and he had the distance. He just wasn't on target. He was far right, but he's gonna break the record at some point. But the Panthers, they played good. In a game where a lot of people might have expected them to get blown out, the defense showed up at times where it mattered. Though they did still give up 30 points, I feel like it was better than what they expected, considering it's a young defense against a proven veteran offense. So, and I mean, Teddy Bridgewater didn't play terrible either. He has to improve a little bit on his game. But the fact that the Panthers were able to keep up score for score with the Chiefs does say a lot for the Panthers' future. At 22, got the Minnesota Vikings moving up a little bit. Dalvin Cook is going to just carry this team on his back until it breaks, because that's what he's done the last 2 weeks, carrying the Vikings to victories. Because now the Vikings are at a 3-6 record. It's either 3-5 or 3-6. I'm getting all mixed up with the bye weeks now, but he's carried him to back-to-back victories after a brutal start to the season, where he did miss a couple games. And now, going forward, a lot of defenses, they should be scheming to take out Dalvin Cook, make Kirk Cousins beat you down the field, because Cook has just been unstoppable these last 2 weeks, and I feel like it's going to come down to the point where they're going to have to throw more pressure, sit more people in the box, and have a man specific on Dalvin Cook if they want to be successful defensively. Because the Vikings are putting on a show on offense, and the show's being led by Chef Cook. At 21, poor Chargers, man. They were so close in that game. And I mean, that last play, that's just so demoralizing. The Chargers, they thought it was a touchdown. They thought it was a walk-off victory. But that Raiders defensive back knew. I don't know who it was, but he was just standing there. He just knew. He's like, nope, that was not a catch. It was not a catch. Refs go and look at it. It was not a catch. The Chargers are having a brutal season. And it's not even Justin Herbert is one of the few bright spots of it. And it's because the Chargers have been competitive in just about every game, but they have not been able to close them out. Time and time again, they have not been able to close out games. It's been brutal for them, and I think it might lead to a coaching change there. As you know, as a head coach, you have to be able to close out close games, and Anthony Lynn just has not been able to do that in his career with the Chargers. So I would not be surprised if there's some coaching changes there this offseason. At 20, the phony Chicago Bears. I knew it. Everyone who's going like, why are the Bears ranked so low on everyone's power rankings? They have a winning record. Yeah, that's because they don't know how to do this thing called play offense. Nick Foles is washed up. Allen Robinson is the only talented player on the offense. The defense is past its prime. What does that make for? An overrated team. And it showed. The only points they scored were in garbage time against the Titans. They didn't know how to stop Derrick Henry. They didn't know how to stop A.J. Brown. And they played absolutely horribly. Don't ignore the scoreline because that does not tell the tale of how badly the Bears played in that game. So, Bears, you got a offensive issue to figure out because you don't have a quarterback. Allen Robinson wants to leave you this offseason. And your one good running back gets injured all the time. So you just wasted years defensively. You had a great defense a couple years ago, but couldn't put it together to go win a championship. So your playoff aspirations are done for at least the next couple years. 19, the Houston Texans. Move them up a little bit with the win over the Jaguars. Did not look great defensively, especially against a rookie day 3 pick at quarterback. Deshaun Watson did play good. The receivers are starting to become better and not be absolute garbage like they were in the beginning of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans come back and make a playoff push here. They did it, I think it was last year they did it. Or it was at least, if not last year, the year before, where they made a late playoff push to go. They started terribly at like 1-5 and still made the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if it happens again here with Romeo Crennel at the helm. Oldest head coach in the league right now. It's a neat little stat for you. But Texans, as long as Deshaun Watson's leading them, they do have a chance in every game they play. He's just an outstanding playmaker. And it makes you think what could have happened, like, if a team... So, in that draft where Trubisky went, so the Browns had the first pick. They took Myles Garrett. Mahomes is in that same draft. I don't know if the that's a tough choice for the Browns, in my opinion. As good as Mahomes is, that's a tough choice. Because at the time Hugh Jackson was head coach there, I don't know if Hugh Jackson would have been able to develop Patrick Mahomes. So, and his mentor there would have been Tyrod Taylor. I definitely think Alex Smith is a better mentor than Tyrod Taylor. Because Tyrod Taylor doesn't really want to mentor. He wants to be a starter, but keeps losing his job because he's overrated. So, that would leave the number 2 pick where the Bears would probably take Deshaun Watson if Mahomes went 1. So, Watson's definitely a top 5 quarterback in my opinion in this league. He just has to go out. This team has to get him the support he needs, mostly defensively, so they can go win some better games. At 18, the Atlanta Falcons, they almost choked again. They almost did it again, and I would have laughed so hard because that would have been really hilarious. But they pulled through with a win, and it's going to be those times where, it's a cycle for the Falcons. Suck at the beginning of the season, make no changes, make no changes even though you should, go win out almost the rest of the season, finish with like a 7-9 record, and make no staff changes because why would we do that? We finished 7-9, we had a good end to the season. Repeat the next year. It's going to be very tough for the Falcons to rebuild going forward, considering the amount of money they do owe Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. They can't really get rid of them. So that's a little rough for them to try and rebuild. I do believe they'll probably stick with Matt Ryan after the season, but this team needs to stop winning games or else they're just going to ruin their draft position and go get a defensive talent. At 17, I have my New England Patriots, who almost lost to the New York Football Jets. Cam Newton played a little bit better. I mean, that's a bright spot. Damian Harris played good. Jacoby Myers needs to be the starting receiver going forward. Harry needs to be put on the burner because he just hasn't been able to develop. Shouldn't have drafted him. He's, in my opinion, a bust to this point. Nothing more than a run blocker. Myers is definitely the playmaking receiver that the Patriots fans wanted in that draft. In that draft, the Patriots wanted we wanted a playmaking receiver. We instead went and got a physical receiver And we have our playmaking receiver in Jacoby Myers now. Hopefully he can continue to develop. The defense, boy oh boy, they got lucky. I get it, they're dealing with injuries and all this other stuff, but man, that was brutal. That game was just way too close to call. And I think it's going to be tough for the Patriots to put wins together going for the rest of the season with tough games, which include the Ravens this week, Cardinals, Rams, Chargers, Bills again, Texans. It's a brutal stretch for them, and I don't know if they're going to be able to pull through. At 16, I have the Rams. The Rams have had a shaky season. They're definitely a competitive and winning team. They'll most likely make the playoffs, but they've had some sketchy games here. They got absolutely destroyed by the Dolphins before going into their bye this past week. So they're going to have to get better if they want to stay competitive, especially in a division like the NFC West, where whoever's dead last might not make the playoffs. The other three will. So that's going to get really interesting going forward for the Rams, because if they can't win games that they're supposed to, then they're going to fall behind to teams like the 49ers, who are dealing with injuries but still finding ways to put wins together at some point. So, yeah, Jared Goff's got to play a little bit better and not be as turnover happy as he has been recently. 15, the Indianapolis Colts. The defense is semi-legit. I'm going to go with semi-legit. They've definitely played up to the task of playing tough offenses. I think the Ravens showing was a good example of that. But that offense is just god-awful. Phillip Rivers is washed up. Jonathan Taylor is still a growing rookie at running back. And the receivers can't do anything. So what does that make for a team that has like a 5-4 record? Because the games that they've won, it's because the offense hasn't played absolutely terrible and turned the ball over every play. So if the Colts somehow make the playoffs, which I don't think they will, they're not going to go very far because their team is not meant to play in the playoffs. They're not very good offensively, and that's what you need to win in this day and age in the playoffs. And we've seen it time and time again. Unless you're Bill Belichick and the Patriots in 2019, you need a defense to go win a Super Bowl. Or your defense isn't going to carry you there. You can have a good defense, but unless you're Bill Belichick in 2019, your defense isn't going to carry you to those playoffs. You need a good offense. At 14, I have the 49ers. They're dealing with injuries. They got blown out by the Packers on Thursday Night Football. Was pretty much expected. Not too crazy of a thing there. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out for a while. Kittle's going to be out for a while. And it's going to be a real interesting debate as to whether or not they decide to keep Garoppolo or not, because they don't owe him very much money. They could easily cut their losses and go out and get a pretty cheap quarterback. In my opinion, you hear me out here. You cut Jimmy Garoppolo. You get like $20 million in cap space. And you go sign Jameis Winston for like $4 million. He's a better playmaker than Jimmy Garoppolo is. He's more likely to turn the ball over, but he can go win you games that Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been able to do, because Jimmy Garoppolo is playing in a system that he's not meant to play in. Kyle Shanahan's system is plug and play at quarterback. So if some coach can teach Jameis Winston to not be like go on a 30 for 30, then they have a shot. But the 49ers, very rough season for them. You know, they just came off of a Super Bowl loss and then injury after injury this season. They haven't been able to recover very much. And it's a shame because the season's just about down the drain for them. At 13, I have the Browns. They had a bye week. The bullies of the AFC. As much as people want to say and not be very highly on the Browns, they are a good team. They're not a great team. They're going to make the playoffs due to a weak schedule where they're going to win most of the remaining games. They're going to go probably at least 10-6. The Browns, though, they're going to be in a similar situation with the Jets. I said similar because it's not exact. The Jets are going to have like the number 1 overall pick where they can go get Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be a very eye-opening decision as to whether or not they decide to keep Baker Mayfield, because he's had his very high ups, but he's also had his very low downs. It's going to be very odd if they do decide to move on from Baker. I don't think they should. I think give Kevin Stefanski another year with him, and that offense will look even better. Give him a healthy OBJ. Those guys have never played healthy on that Browns offense. A lot of them usually play injured. So the Browns, they're going to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of are they going to be able to compete with the bigger teams, and that's a big question mark for them. At 12, the Arizona Cardinals. Wow, are the Cardinals going to be like the next inconsistent team in the league? You go and beat the Seahawks in a great game, and you just tear them up on both sides of the ball, and then you go and lose to the Dolphins. I mean, granted, the Dolphins are a better team than people are giving them credit for, and you realize that because I haven't mentioned the Dolphins yet. But jeez, it's still brutal to see being a Patriots fan and seeing like the Dolphins be successful, the Bills. Very odd changing of the tide. But Kyler Murray didn't look too bad. They didn't get DeAndre Hopkins involved as much as I think they wanted to, and it showed because the Dolphins didn't really worry too much about him. They just did what they had to do, and they scored when they needed to. Tua looked great, though. No training wheels on for him. He's slinging it. He looks great. That one play where he dodged the sack and then ran up, it was a great play. Good to see for the future of his team. No injuries, it looks like, for him, but Cardinals, they'll probably make the playoffs. They're sitting at 5-3 right now, I think. They're going to have to start winning some close games, though, against teams that, kind of like the Rams, they should, on paper, be able to beat. And just hope that the defense can't set them back. Speaking of Tua and the Dolphins, they looked great. I kind of merged the two into one there accidentally. In talking about Tua looked great. I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick would have been able to keep up in that game. Tua, definitely being the younger, more talented player, carried them to a win. It was a great job by him. In my opinion, I think Coach of the Year should go to Brian Flores. He's put it in 1 year. He turned a team even less than that. So the Dolphins were expected to tank for Tua, which they ended up getting to in the end, but they didn't tank. They finished the season finishing winning 5 out of their 6 games, 5 or 7 games. They finished the season 5-2, and they've carried it into the following season. They're still playing good football, and it honestly might carry them into a possible wildcard spot if they can keep the good play going. It's just a matter of being able to keep it up and not be inconsistent. Cracking into the top 10, the autumn wind in the Las Vegas Raiders. No matter how many times you want to find them, take away draft picks, they're still going to go find ways to win games, and they did that against the Chargers. Derek Carr is playing great at quarterback. He's kind of flying under the radar with his play. He looks great. He's turning receivers like Nelson Aguilar into beasts who couldn't do anything in Philly, and the defense slowly starting to get better. They've dealt with some inconsistencies on that side of the ball, especially in the back end of it in the secondary. But they're playing like a competitive team. They're winning games. I mean, they're the only team to beat the Chiefs so far this season, so, props to them there. So, good season going for the Raiders, and with it being John Gruden, I think it's his 3rd year. Yeah, because they were on the HBO show last year. Hard Knocks. They were on Hard Knocks last year, so yeah, this is his third year. I mean, he's on a 10-year deal, so you would think by the third, fourth year they'd be making the playoffs, and it looks like that might happen. So, as much as we like to critique Mike Mayock and John Gruden, their decision-making, it's not looking too horribly. It could be a lot better, but it's not too horrible. At 9, the Titans. The drop is only just due to movements ahead of them. The Titans haven't been a competitive team against higher competition, so the drop is due because the higher competition is ahead of them. But they played a good game against the Bears. They did allow almost a late comeback. That's not a good look for them. They have to be able to close out games no matter what lead they have, and they don't want that to be an issue going forward, especially playing teams like the Steelers and the Chiefs possibly in the playoffs. We got Buffalo at number 8. Great performance by the Bills against the Seahawks. They absolutely blew them out offensively. Josh Allen made very few mistakes. The offense looked great on all different facets, and Stephon Diggs didn't even have to carry him as he didn't have a touchdown in that game. Whereas receivers like, I think Tyler Kroft had one, Isaiah McKenzie had a touchdown, where Josh Allen can just throw to little lesser-known receivers and spread the ball around. I think there's like 4 or 5 receivers who are getting a good share of the ball on offense between Diggs, Cole Beasley, John Brown, Gabriel Davis, and Isaiah McKenzie. That's 5 receivers that have seen action for the Bills offensively. And then the defense, though it could be playing better, they've been dealing with injuries throughout the season, and they're playing good considering what they have gone through. Definitely not as good as people expected, but they're playing good enough. Wow. That's all. There's not really any words. The Buccaneers got absolutely smoked. That was the worst game of Tom Brady's career. Hands down. Worst game of Tom Brady's career. That was absolutely atrocious for him. He looked god-awful. The defense didn't know how to stop the Saints. And that offense just played like straight garbage. I think Antonio Brown led them in receiving yards. So, yeah. That was not a good showing for the Bucs. They broke the record. Mind you, this is 2020. The NFL has been around for 100 years. Right? They broke the record for least amount of carries in a football game. I forget what year the original one happened, but it was 6 carries in a game. If you include the final kneel down for the Buccaneers on their last play, they had 5 rushing plays. That was absolutely awful performance for them. I feel like it completely mitigates their performance against the Packers, because the Packers' defense has been inconsistent this year. The Buccaneers have just lost two head-to-head matchups against the Saints, and that is why the Saints are my Super Bowl pick. But we'll get more into that when I get to the Saints part. Bucs need to show up better. At 6, have the Ravens. They got lucky with a couple odd plays against the Colts. It was definitely a weird fumble. They got lucky on the fumble return touchdown, and that was not a catch interception. That was absolutely atrocious of a play call, in my opinion. Like, you're going to call that an interception? If that was a receiver, no. Absolutely not. You can call the 3 steps all you want. He did not have full control of the ball. It was clear. I can't believe the call. But they got it anyways, and they go and win the game. Lamar Jackson is starting to be figured out, and I think the Madden curse is coming. Whether it's injuries, loss of talent, the Madden curse always comes to bite you. And you can say, well, Mahomes was the cover and the curse didn't happen to him. False. Mahomes did have the curse happen to him. Mahomes got injured last season, if you didn't remember. He had a pretty bad knee injury, all things considered. There was a chance he could have been out for the year. Instead, he only missed 3 or 4 games and came back and won them a Super Bowl. The curse did happen. It just came early and didn't happen too much down the road. The Ravens and Lamar Jackson. This is where it's going to start to get interesting. I've said that Lamar Jackson, if he couldn't develop a strong arm and a decent passing game, would not last very long in this league. And look what's happening. He was quoted saying this week that defenses are calling their plays before they run them at the line, meaning that middle linebacker with the headset in his ear, they're calling out Lamar Jackson in their plays before they execute them. That's sad. You can have as many options in a playbook as you want, but it will catch up to you because that means you have less plays and your stuff is more based on options. The Ravens, all you have to do is run a cover one spy and you're all set. Throw one deep safety, throw one spy, and play man coverage the rest of the way. And they're not gonna go very far in the playoffs, and it's for this reason. They aren't a very hard team to figure out, and teams are starting to figure them out. Getting into the top 5, we have the Seahawks. That was a very bad loss for them against the Bills. They need to play better if they want to stay competitive in the ultra-competitive NFC West, as well as competing in the conference. As for a lot of people, they're considered the NFC favorites for the Super Bowl. They're not, in my opinion, for the fact that their defense is bottom 5 in the league. I mean, if I were to rank the bottom 5 defenses, I'd go with Jets, Cowboys, Giants, throw maybe one other in there, and the Seahawks. That's just off the top of my head. The Seahawks defense is atrocious. And like I talked about earlier with the Colts, you need a balanced team to go win a Super Bowl. The Colts, they don't have the offense to go do well successfully. They have a decent defense, but they don't have an offense. The Bears, they don't have an offense. They have a decent defense. The Seahawks have an amazing offense, top 5 offense. But their defense is on the complete opposite of the spectrum, and they don't balance out. And that's the issue. If Russell Wilson doesn't play a perfect game, the Seahawks lose because they can't. That means they can't keep up with the opposing offenses. So we're going to see that issue come probably in the playoffs, where the Seahawks are going to play a team that is good on both sides of the ball, and they're not going to be able to keep up if Russell Wilson can't keep the turnovers to a minimum. At 4, I have the Packers. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers and teams that aren't top 3 in their conference, they don't play too bad against. So they definitely need to figure out the defense going forward. But other than that, they're not playing too bad. They're going to get a fairly easy game this week in the Jaguars to go beat up on them. They destroyed the 49ers. They're going to ride some easy wins to go make the playoffs. It's just similar to the Seahawks. Are they going to be able to keep up their easy performances against weaker teams to go win playoff games? And I think that's going to be an issue for them, as they didn't give Rodgers any weapons other than Devontae Adams. And if you double cover Devontae, then it's just forcing the other playmakers to try and do something. And if you play good defense, I don't think that's going to be very easy to do. Number 3 of the Steelers. They should have lost to the Cowboys. I'm sorry. They should have lost. That should have been their fluke game of the year. The Steelers definitely aren't going undefeated. You can say it all you want, but they're not going to. Jesus, they almost lost to Garrett Gilbert. I'm telling you right now, if Dak was playing that game, Cowboys win. Calling it right now. You couldn't put up more than 24 points against that Cowboys defense, and you boast and rave about your receiving core, and that Cowboys secondary is one of the worst in the league. that's not going to slide against a team like the Chiefs. I can tell you that right now. Chiefs are going to go bombs away if you allow them to do that. And that's why the Chiefs are a clear favorite in this conference, because the Chiefs have very few issues. If the defense doesn't play great for the Chiefs, which does happen sometimes, there are games where the Chiefs' defense doesn't play the greatest, Mahomes will just gunsling his way to a victory. That Raiders game, I feel like, was a fluke. I don't think that really shows what the Chiefs are as a team, and they've shown it going forward. They can go win games when they need to. I don't know if the Steelers are going to be able to do that. At number 2, the best team in the NFC, and my Super Bowl pick to even beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the New Orleans Saints. Sean Payton is a top 3 coach in this league. He's hidden Drew Brees' issues of throwing the ball deep this whole season, and it's just been great for them. The defense is starting to show up. That defense played great against the Buccaneers. If they can replicate that every game this season, granted, I'm sure it's going to be hard to do because there's no replication in the NFL, but if they can play that consistent for the rest of the season, whoo, baby, the Saints are going to be a tough team to beat. They can have as many close games as they want to teams like the Bears and the Panthers, but if you can go and blow out Tampa Bay and the Buccaneers, jeez, I feel scared for anyone who has to face them. And you got the little T's, but they've been here for most of the season. Kansas City Chiefs in the number 1 spot, where they belong. They had a close victory against the Panthers, but I mean, it's the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes is going to go win games. Andy Reid probably on the last legs of his career. He's going to play out the rest of his contract most likely as he is getting older. This is going to be a very good team over the next couple years. I think after about maybe 3 years, they're going to start to have a little bit of cap issues, even though they're already having them right now. But all in all, great job for the Chiefs. They're clearly the best team in the AFC, and I think whoever goes to the Super Bowl in the AFC is going to have to go through Kansas City, and I don't know if any team is going to be able to stop them. I think the team that would have been most likely to at the moment, my 2 picks would have been Steelers and Bills. Bills got blown out by the Chiefs, and the Steelers almost lost to the Cowgirls. So, Chiefs are still clear number 1 team in the AFC, and I think it'd be a fun Super Bowl to see Patrick Mahomes go against Drew Brees. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe, leave a like. It would be greatly appreciated. Hope you all enjoyed. And let's go root for those Patriots on Sunday Night Football against the Ravens.